Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And well, for the news, let's of course get started with the expert system that CCP has announced, which is, I think in a nutshell you could call it a booster that is going to give you access to a large pool or a certain pool of skills for a certain amount of time without giving them to you permanently. And so the aim of that is probably going to be to allow new players to get into certain activities that they may want to explore more quickly. The reception, well, you know, as expected when it comes to new monetization options for the game, is not very positive on like the subreddit and things like that, which I can understand. I'm trying to always watch both sides, but it always does feel like there's new revenue streams that have to be put online, and I think everyone kind of jumps to that must be pressure from behind CCP itself, from the owners, from Pearl Abyss, and that may absolutely be what is happening here. So as I've said, a quick analysis on this. Number one, I am kind of disappointed that this will not be tradable on the market. At least in a news article it said that once they're redeemed, they're like tied to the character, can't trade them around. So I feel like that's a little bit of that's not too sandboxy right there. But on the other hand, of course, it doesn't actually create anything really in the game. Sure, it gives access perhaps a little bit more quickly to certain parts of the game that is going to create some extra influx of some of these items, and so in that way you could maybe see that as in having an impact on the market. But the item itself is a little bit fugazi, right? Just like a free sample of drugs or something like that. It just gives you access to a certain amount of skills for a certain amount of time. You can train in the meantime, but it doesn't give you a boost to the training or anything like that. It's just, giving you a free sample, or not even a free sample, a paid sample, to give you a taste of what's to come. And so from that perspective, it doesn't create anything, so it's still skirting the line, but it's not, again, in my opinion, something that is against the rules of the sandbox or really pay to win. So we will see. My biggest question mark on this is actually how successful will something like that be, because we do see quite a decent amount of complaining about this, but if I'm not mistaken, almost all of that complaining will come from players that will never use it or have any use for the item itself. And I myself can't see me ever using something like that. It's pretty obvious what it is. It's like a free sample, but you have to pay to get access to something for a limited amount of time. I would personally never go in for a deal like that. I'd say no, I'd suck it up, train the actual skills, and get in the good old hard way. So I would say the people complaining at the moment are never going to use it anyway, and I will not actually be impacted greatly by the item, by this expert system, and I kind of wonder how successful something like that is going to be. Now, not everyone has the same mentality that I have, and that I'm probably going to say maybe even be overrepresented in the EVE Online community. People willing to struggle through the hard times, to go the long way, to have the long vision for skilling up a character and setting yourself a goal of flying a certain ship, skilling up to that, earning the ship, maybe making the ship, buying the ship, and then finally flying the ship. To have that journey be something rewarding for a lot of players, of course, that's not going to be the case. In fact, I saw just recently someone with a pretty big YouTube following that tried EVE Online, and the first thing they do is watch the trailers, then they watch those huge battles, and they say, all right, give me some of that, get me into one of these battles, that's what I want to experience, that's what I want to do. But of course the game itself is a lot slower than that, and lots of people will probably be looking for getting a taste of what they're committing to before actually committing to that. So it may actually be successful. Anyways, we will see. These expert systems, again, I'm disappointed that it won't be tradable on the market. That to me is the one thing that kind of disappoints me in there, really. And other than that, I don't feel too involved because I don't see it as having a huge impact on the economy, on the game, and on the market. And I'm definitely not the target audience there. So we'll just, watch it from the sidelines and see how it evolves. So next up, we'll take a quick look at the New Eden store. Here we go. I did click on it before, but all right, it's back. So we get some sales here on some of the skins that are available. I think Farker Hazard Control skin, does look pretty good. And then the Flycatcher Zento Isideko skin, in my book, also pretty cool. Kronos Neon skin, alright, pretty unique one. Definitely something I've seen used quite a lot, is also on sale. So you can definitely, Golem Vital Shift Ego skin, also quite nice. Yeah, if you want to, you can definitely browse through that, and there are some skins available at sale prices. And then here for the services, we don't see anything special, and so we can probably expect at some point in a patch to have the expert systems show up here. May really fill this all up and have like a pack for Explorer, Miner, Mission Runner, perhaps some other stuff as well. We'll see what kind of packs CCP creates. I must also say that it's sort of a reminder that CCP is not a charity, it's a company. It's there to make money, and as a result, there are things like that will happen. After all, they've really opened up the free-to-play part of the game, managed to do so, in my opinion, still in a pretty balanced way, but of course everyone is dreaming of that free-to-play money, which is actually pretty damn huge. If you watch perhaps Angry Joe, who regularly does like a news show where they quite often mention, the types of revenue that you get from subscriptions and then buying games compared to like the free-to-play monetization stuff. It's absolutely mind-boggling how successful that is. And then on top of that, how much bigger at this point as well the mobile market is becoming. Well, the game companies themselves are all, of course, very eager to get a piece of that pie, and so you're seeing stuff like this from CCP that's definitely trying to find ways to monetize the game without breaking the rules of the sandbox. I do think that they're pretty careful about that in all aspects there, but there's probably some pressure to do that. And then like Blizzard's, I love some Blizzard games, absolutely, but you can see that same pressure there, where they're following the money, and it's not necessarily all about passion. It's a lot about business as well. So let's move on to the market itself. Pretty long introduction on this one, but all right. And at 8 minutes, we're going to move in on some plex and stuff. Let's write that down like that. And here we go, the price of plex. As a result, if we analyze this could take away demand for plex. So this is like a CCP intervention that I'm calling, that could have, of course, an impact on the market. So again, it will depend on how successful it is, but I don't see, it having that much of an impact on the skill injector skill. Well, although it could also decrease demand, it's not going to replace that long-term demand, because you still need to train up all of these skills. But so for plex, I would say, in all likeliness, you'll see a little bit less demand for plex if players actually decide to use these expert systems. 2.5 million for the sellers. Sellers are down a little bit in GTA itself, and well below 2.4 million at this point for the buyers. If we go to the player-owned trade hubs, we're going substantially below 2.5 million for the sellers at almost 2.45. And then the buyers are in the same region, below 2.35 million. So definitely seeing more pressure on the price of plex, and honestly, of course, an announcement like the expert systems that is bound to take a little bit of plex demand out of the game for every player that uses that, because it's just you can play for free, probably get the expert system up and running, and discover what you want to do. That's like maybe 500 plex gone. We don't know all the details of it, but let's imagine that for 2 weeks you can use all of those skills. It could end up becoming a pretty expensive habit, but it's pretty obvious as well, that it seems to be something that you use maybe once or twice, and then make your decision on what you want to do in the game. And that may be a problem for a lot of new players. I'm sure that CCP actually has all the metrics when it comes to the reasons why why people try the game but don't stick to the game. And if it is, I can't fly the ship that I want to quickly enough, or I don't know what to do after the tutorials. I think that's something that will come back quite often. Then getting an expert system so that you can actually try a certain career with more ships and things like that could be the way to go. Of course, this is a cruel sandbox. Getting that Ishtar on an expert system and then getting that blown up is going to be a pretty costly lesson as well. So we'll see how it all interacts. Next up, we have the multiple pilot training certificate that's doing a bit of a counter move. All right, average prices heading back towards the 1.3 billion range, almost 1.3 billion for the sellers and 1.2 billion for the buyers. So while plex is back under pressure here, the training certificate actually bouncing a little bit from super close to a 1-year low point, it must be said, of course. After that, we've got the skill extractors following plex very closely, heading for the 280 million. Yeah, in fact, breaking through that. I think this could be, also a little bit of, all right, if you get the expert systems, you're gonna maybe be a little bit slower on grabbing a skill extractor, skill injector, and as a result, the market is expecting a lower demand because of that. 277 million for the sellers, 272 million for the buyers. Definitely a 1-year low point, as both are below the 280 million mark. After that, we've got our injectors. Here are the large scale injectors that are continuing to bounce off of 630 million, definitely at a 1-year low point as well. And 635 for the sellers, 610 for the buyers. So here again, while the sellers haven't shown up yet to dump desperately to this market, the buyers are definitely not eager to invest in large scale injectors. 610 for one buyer, 607 for the next one. We go down to 66 very quickly, 606. So there is definitely pressure on this category now, and I'm guessing that this announcement doesn't help with that if you're looking for higher prices or a bottom formation, which I honestly am looking at a little bit. At some point it's going to turn around, I'm sure, but not the case right now. For the small scale injectors, we have another counter move. This keeps happening. That's very strange. We're actually at 128 for the sellers and 121 for the buyers. And all right, it's a weird data point. Something must have happened. Maybe another station in GTA or something like that in the system, because it's above 130. So this is not actually the case. Although 127 does put it at a higher end of this range. It's going to be interesting to see by next week how things normalize for these two, but sometimes the small scale injector market does seem to have like this surprise upswing, whereas I see more pressure in the large scale injector markets. Then we have the daily alpha injectors that are continuing their precipitous decline towards 35 million ISK. So let's see where that one will stop. 38.4 million, 0.3 million, let's say, for the sellers, and then 35 million for the buyers. Definitely a sharp decline over the last 2 months. The pressure is just not stopping, and here for the daily alpha injectors, you really do of course have this expert system that's coming directly into this market segment, because the daily alpha injector, as the name implies, is only for alpha clones. It's really something that's actually quite alright, a nice goal to shoot for, like 40-ish million is something that an alpha clone can definitely manage to scrape together in a certain amount of time. Set that as your goal. Feels like it's something quite doable, and then you can get a nice boost in your skill points. But of course, I think a lot of players will be doing that and using that in order to boost up the skill points for maybe a certain ship or a certain activity, and now they could get that free sample through the expert system, and so the market seems to be expecting further declines in the daily alpha injector demand market, which to me makes absolute sense, of course. Won't be tradable on the market, so I'm not really sure how visible that will be, but yeah, we'll see. Right now, just confirming more pressure, and then finally we've got the hypercores that are flattening out on a slightly higher volumes. So maybe the gamblers are coming back to the game as well. 261,000 for the sellers, 250,000 for the buyers. Definitely a narrower margin here, slightly higher volumes, and able to maintain this current price. And I think it said like over 1 million people individual people are believed to have tried EVE Online last year. Looking at the daily numbers, yeah, we haven't really managed to maintain that many of them, and so I do think CCP is actively looking into that, into how they can improve this. But for now, this announcement for me reads as bad news for the plex stuff segment. Quite a few of these expect to see more pressure, and yeah, we've seen some buyers definitely drop out, for instance, from the large scale injector market. Next up, we've got the mineral market coming in at 1525. Let's go here. As always, we'll start with titanium. That has seen a little bit more pressure again, but in JITA itself, we're still at 605-ish for the sellers, so we're able to defend the price above 6 ISK, and then the buyers are coming in at 581. Still not that much of a margin between these two, and as or a spread, I think it's actually in a technical term. I've picked that up on one of the videos, I believe. Is that the spread? Is that correct? Anyways, you know, you can still sell your titanium for around 6 ISK, which on this chart doesn't look good, but from the historical perspective is right, you know, the middle of the road. It's a price where, you know, if you want to liquidate your titanium, if you want to get ISK for your mining, you can definitely sell it at this point because it's still an okay price. But once you go below that, there's the hesitation between 5 and 6. It's like, all right, the closer to 5 you get, the more likely you are to want to hold on to it, and then the higher you get from 6 to 7, you know, and once you reach 7, it's like, all right, definitely sell. You're getting a nice ISK per hour for all of your efforts. We're right in the middle of that, and honestly here, I don't think you're going wrong either way. Holding on for a slightly better price may be good, but selling right now is definitely not throwing away your efforts or your titanium. After that, no, we don't have Noxium, but we've got Pyrite coming in next. That's plateauing quite nicely, just below 20. Not bad and pretty stable. A little bit of a surprise here. Well, maybe this is the reason. That's interesting. 19.25, almost 19.30 for the sellers, and then 19 is for the buyers. Quite aggressive again. The demand does seem to be there. Now, there is a 1.4 billion units that came in. That is going to be the anchor that has basically stabilized the price and kept it from breaking back through above 20 ISK. Not really sure where that comes from, because that feels like a decent amount to dump in a single sell order, but that's basically the reason why we have been so stable. We probably keep bouncing up against that as new sellers come in and of course have to compete with this, so they go below that, but then there's enough demand to grab all of that cheap stuff and to slowly nibble at that 1.4 billion units here. Once we get through that, we may go up in price. If you don't see this order move in volumes, then you know, expect this to become the norm for now. After that, we've got Mexalon that is finally showing its first sign of having increased supplies, I would say, taking advantage of these incredible prices. Normal price 75-ish for Mexalon is already a good price. Is I think equivalent to that 6 ISK for titanium. Here we're at 125 and above, and we've been here for 2 months straight. Very expensive, definitely still your focus if you're mining in high-sec. 129 for the sellers and 122 for the buyers. Volumes here pretty normal except for the 25 million here, but that's already above 130. So this is yeah, a slight correction, I think, on more supplies, which is normal. You're not gonna mine for titanium specifically, so you're gonna look for that Mexalon component, and as a result it's generally going to indeed even out a little bit. Might just give both titanium and pyrite a bit of breathing room, except I think you always get pyrite when you mine for Mexalon as well. After that, we've got the isogen market able to stay above 40. Let's take a quick look at that. 44 for the sellers and then 41 for the buyers. And no, it's still there at 45. We still have 2 billion units here that are waiting, and it's only got 35 more days to sell, so that's going to be interesting. Supplies still seem to be quite ample, with another 350 million right here, 40 million, 45 million. I'm surprised that such big sell orders, way bigger than the Mexalon numbers, are still finding their way to the market. We'll have to see if this is old stocks or not. I would say the upcoming weeks, maybe even like up to a month from now, when this order is gone, What kind of supplies do we keep seeing then? In what kind of a size is going to be pretty important to determine where Isogen is going and what the supply side of things actually look like at the moment, because of course I don't have that full bird's eye view of exactly who is mining what in LowSec at the moment. After that we've got Noxium, that is also finally, you could say, showing first some signs of strain of not being able to continue to command that 1300, 1350 price range for the sellers. And yet they still do here, 3050 for the sellers and, well, 1200 for the first buyer in range of JITA. So it's a little bit of demand that seems to have been reduced, and some dumping to these buyers that have dropped the average prices down a little bit. But overall, Noxium still at an incredible premium, especially when you look at the start of the year. I would say even historically it's expensive, not crazy expensive. I think above 1000 disk was not that crazy for Noxium, but yeah, if you're able to mine in LowSec for Noxium, that's definitely your go-to. And then Isogen, of course, also coming a lot from there. Still too early. I'm still reading this as stocks, but I may be wrong on that. Although I think that this is, again, 40 round, 20 million round, 25 million round, 50 million round. I still think someone else came in with even more Noxium from the good old days and is again dumping that right now. Short, the term for how long it's going to take to get through all of this for Isogen does seem to be extremely, extremely long at the moment. After that, we've got the, so we went to Noxium, yep, then we get the Zydrine market. Again, a little bit of a data anomaly here at 0 ISK, but we're basically we went just above 1500 and I think we're just below that. 1455 for the sellers, 1362 for the buyers. Very expensive Zydrine, of course, and here we've got the more normal volumes, and this stuff has to come from nullsec, so they have regained that commanding position where they're basically the ones that have to import that Zydrine into HiSec, and then they determine the price. Of course, they're going to put it up for a sell order, and that's going to be the price for Zydrine. And yeah, at 1455 for the sellers, 1362 for the buyers, but just one jump out here, get some more towards 1400. That margin closes very quickly, and the sellers are really in command here. It is the same with Megasite, but Megasite at yeah, much lower price than what I would say its historical average is at. 631 now for the sellers, 592 for the buyers, and a couple of bigger volumes, but nothing that crazy. So it's looking more and more to me like indeed from Triglavian space you are getting more Megasite sources than what the economy actually needs at the moment, or compared to before the resource crunch and things like that, meaning that Megasite has not gained that much on the year and is still like a nullsec mineral that is not as good. Zydrine is still top of the bill. After, of course, the real king that's not tied to Tech 1 production, but here is the Morphite chart that is basically still slowly correcting a little bit from an amazing top of above 80,000 ISK. It's now going for 70, almost 71,000 for the sellers, and then 68,000 for the buyers. And yeah, for Morphite that is extremely high, perhaps even close to all-time high right here, where we went to almost like 85,000. I used to invest in Morphite when I got the chance to buy below 10,000 ISK, and I've actually managed to do that on a couple of occasions. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective here how big this rise in price is. Very, very impressive, of course, and this over the course of basically 1, 2, 3, 4 months you could have bought here for very close to 10k, and you would have like 7 times your money or something like that at the moment. That was to me an unexpected crazy increase here, but there you go. That was a CCP intervention, of course, in October when they rebalanced the ores and made them unique to certain parts of space. Here is the Morphite result of that intervention. Allow me to quickly drink some water here. And then we'll move on to PI at 24.35. like that. Let's see if the trends continue. Well, no, but I would say a little bit of good news here. Broadcast nodes, while not continuing to increase towards 2 million, is at least moving sideways now, just below 1.5 million on the chart. It's 1.4 for the sellers, 1.3 for the buyers. So basically we did make our way out of the 1 year low point of less than a million ISK, losing 50% of its value from the start of the year. Quite painful. I'm reading this as, more volumes, as players getting ready for potentially a structure announcement from CCP. Smaller structures with localized influence is something that was teased during one of the live streams, and as a result players are expecting that. What's good news, I would say, is that the market is not being crashed by new supply here, and that we're basically able to hold on to the gains of the last 1.5 months here. Construction blocks are still, very low. That's the story in the refined PI materials. Too plentiful, not enough demand, and having lost like 30, almost sometimes 50% of their value pretty much across the board here. So 7,400 for the sellers, 6,900 for the buyers. Bottom prices at the moment for construction blocks. Consumer electronics in the same boat. Now it went down to 5,000 ISK on a day. That was kind of crazy, of course, but still we're now again moving in that 6,000 to 7,000 ISK range pretty much. Yeah, 6,900 for the sellers, 6,800 for the buyers. Some more desperate dumping happening despite these super low prices. This is one of the real impacts as well, the ripple effects, I'm going to say, from the resource crunch. So much ISK is flowing into minerals and still has to flow into minerals that that ISK is no longer fueling PI, and as a result we've got a pretty serious crunch in the prices here. Coolants, look at that 1 year chart, straight down for a year, still heading down on the 20 and 5-day moving average. We're going to be close to 6k on this one again. Yeah, below that, in fact, just below 6,000 ISK for the sellers, 5,500 for the buyers, for something that here's a 50% loss, over 11,000 ISK at the start of the year. This is tied to fuels, and those have really been hammered because they actually had some gains here at the start of this chart. Then we've got our exceptions, although here I'm finally seeing a little bit of pressure here as well for cryoprotectant solutions, able to stay above 100,000 ISK. Now this is specialized, this is in line with robotics, tied to fuels. You can see here 60k. Cryoprotectant solutions. I was looking to buy below 100,000 ISK. I think I have the opportunity now. 102 for the sellers, 95,000 for the buyers, and the difference is this is tied to implants, and those have been able to maintain a much stronger price range than before, although here it looks pretty bad from the start of the year. This is not the normal price of 200,000 to 300,000 ISK. This is the introduction of an implant set about a year ago that has boosted those prices quite a lot. And so if you want to be ready for another implant announcement by CCP, try to buy these on the cheap. That would be where you want to be. But for me, yeah, that means cryoprotected solutions, 95k. All right, maybe we could start to try and load up on that just a little bit. Enriched uranium tied to fuel starts at 12.5. Look at that, is heading for 5,000 ISK on the chart. It's 6,000 for the sellers, 5,700 for the buyers. Another 50% loss on a fuel-related PI material. Integrity response drones, all right, showing the first sign of weakness in that recovery here. So we went back up above 1.5 million. Again, still a pretty sizable loss from the start of the year, but we're away from the bottom. But pressure is building as we're back at 1.5 million for the sellers, 1.4 for the buyers. But to get these average prices here below 1.5 million, that means that players have to also be selling to these buyers here. Some desperate producers out there willing to dump their integrity response drones and creating this average price. The mechanical parts are at 7k. This one only lost 30%. Tied to fuel, 7,000 for the sellers, 6,600 for the buyers. Basically didn't have that premium from coolants and enriched uranium, and as a result the losses here may look a little bit more contained, but it's still pretty damn bad. Then we've got nanites here, another implant boost, and now playing with 5k, so the pressure is starting to mount across the board here again. 5,400 for the sellers, just below 5,000 for the buyers, which is where I would be looking to buy some nanites if you want to have some ready for another implant announcement. So you could try it. Honestly, it's been pretty tough to get nanites below 5,000 ISK. I think what may be happening is that some of the ISK that has flown and is maybe still flowing in some of these advanced PI materials is no longer flowing into the ones tied to implants, and so they're starting to play with low points just under the general pressure as well. Perhaps there are some buy opportunities there. Nano Factory also showing that the recovery may not hold for very long. We're back down to 700,000 ISK here on the chart, 735 for the sellers, 650 for the buyers, and it's not that many buyers again. So yeah, for the players that have been making these investments, I hope you didn't go too aggressively. I honestly would always just try and snag some cheap ones up on the buy prices if you want to have some advanced PI materials ready just in case of an announcement around structures. Organic motor applicators, same story, went up to 700,000 and the pressure is back. 716 for the sellers, 633 for the buyers. A little bit better buyers and sellers, but still not great. Recursive computing module also again recovered to 125 million, right? Made back a good chunk of the losses, but here the pressure is mounting yet again below 1.2 for the sellers, just about 1 million for the buyers. Then robotics tied to fuels, we thought we would get back above 60k, but here same story. Pressure is back, and we're in fact back at a 1-year low point to get to this average again. 61,000 almost for the sellers, 56,000 for the buyers. How do you get this average? Well, there's still producers and holders of robotics out there that are saying, I want to get rid of that right now, and selling straight to these buyers down here, which is like super low price. Again, Specialized, compare that to cryoprotection solutions. This normally costs more than 100,000 ISK, currently going for less than 60, losing 45% or so of its average value, I'm gonna say. Self-harmonizing power cores away from the bottom, which is at around 1 million, but not by much. 1.2 million for the sellers, 1.1 million for the buyers. Here a little bit more demand than supply. That could change very quickly again. Sterile conduits, basically in the same situation, slightly up from the bottoms, but not great. 840 for the sellers, 792 for the buyers. Yukomi superconductors, another implant related one, and here I was actually looking to buy below 50,000 ISK. Looks like if we can buy below 60,000 ISK might be the ticket. We're still not there. 67 for the sellers, 63 for the buyers. Also, let's keep in mind this is a specialized PI material, so it's already pretty cheap. Your decision, right? If you want to be ready for that implant set, it can make sense to try and grab some of it. I'll give that one warning though. Never put all your eggs in one basket. I would buy small batches for a certain amount of ISK and just have that ready if that's what I wanted to do. And with mainframes, same thing here, pulled away from the bottom, but the pressure is clearly back on for this one as well. 1.25 million for the sellers, almost 1.2 for the buyers. So PI is still struggling. We had a little bit of a comeback in advanced PI materials in the last couple of weeks, but I'm seeing pressure mount again, may have been those that have bought up high there may be making a bit of a mistake. Next up, the advanced moon materials coming in at 33.30. Oh, same as last week. All right. As always, let's start with the carbide ones. Here is crystalline carbide for Galente, boosting back up to the 162 range, well above average on a lack of supply. 167 for the sellers, 162 for the buyers, forced up to that average range. Very interesting. Some volatility in Galente on the upside, super impressive. And so about a month ago, you could have bought this for probably 125-ish, definitely at the 130 range. You're already looking at a little bit of a profit and some volatility showing up here in the carbide market yet again. Next up, we've got to, here we go, titanium carbide for Caldari, and boosted up to 250. 230 now for the sellers, 204 for the buyers. But again, volatility being back, super nice. About 2 months ago, you could have bought this for, again, the 130-ish range. You're looking at a 230 sell price right now. That would, of course, be quite juicy. Another big upswing and pretty expensive. Now, this could be the Marauder change, right? Marauders are Tech2 battleships, and if they do find themselves in a super powerful position, it requires a lot of material, and as a result, that may be what has increased demand right here. Excuse me, had to sneeze there, and I think I may have to sneeze again in just a moment, but we'll try to continue. Let's see if the Minmatar one here is Fernite Carbide also shooting up. Yeah, oh goddammit, I need to blow my nose as well. I'm gonna take some distance. Apologies, guys, but very interesting for volatility, of course. Look at that upswing. Are we really looking at 200 for the sellers? Yeah, 200 for the sellers. We're just running dry. I think industrialists are now trying to pump out all of these Marauders so that they can satisfy the market. 160 for the buyers. Very, very interesting. Let's see if finally this is also a wave in the Amar markets. And nope, Jesus, Amar markets, 140 for the sellers, 134 for the buyers. I mean, if this was here as well, if this one had jumped up to like 175 or something like that, I would have been like, all right, we can expect a big wave that will push through the entire Tech2 ship market. That doesn't seem to be happening for Amar. Very interesting, slightly unexpected in my book. I think the Paladin is still a very good Marauder as well with the lasers. It's got, you know, pretty decent potential. But yeah, that one exception, tungsten carbide not moving up here. Kind of interesting. Let's see what's happening with the metamaterials before we continue. Photonic metamaterials for Galente, they were already on that slow move up back above 12,500. 13k for the sellers, 12.8 for the buyers. So not a big impact here. We basically have a continuing upward trend though. Then we've got our non-linear metamaterials for Caldari, where we continue to bounce around the 20 to 25,000 range sometimes. So here again we went down to 20 and we're back up to 21,000 for the sellers, 21,000 for the buyers as well. So I do think that we're starting to narrow, right? You could see these bottoms starting to go up, these tops starting to slowly go down as well. So I think we're settling at a price between 20 and 22,000 for now. But over the whole last year, we had quite a bit of volatility in the nonlinear metamaterials market, which has also translated into volatility in the Tech2 ship market, and so we'll have to see how all of this works. I think though that the base materials moving like that could have an impact eventually. Then we've got our Minmatar plasmonic metamaterials also holding on to 20,000 ISK here for the sellers, 18.6 for the buyers. Pretty stable at an around average price. We have that same climb over the last 3 months or so that we see in Galente. And then we've got our interesting Terrorist metamaterials for Amar. Actually also back up over the last 3 months and able to maintain these gains at least. 18,000 for the sellers, 17,000 for the buyers. So, all right, overall, I would say that, yeah, the impact is obvious in this one. Crystalline carbide, Fernite carbide, and then, where is the other one here for Caldari? Titanium carbide, big breakout, massive 1 year high point, another, you know, 25% higher than the previous peak about a month ago. And if you're looking for that volatility, this still indicates that Caldari may be the place. But all of this may be, of course, a consequence of the Marauder change. For the other advanced materials, we had some crawling back, but let's take a look at how quickly the pressure builds. Here is fermion and condensates, 73, almost 74,000 for the sellers, 65,000 for the buyers. So here we are flattening that increase, and first signs as well here that the pressure is mounting. Ferrogel, all right, actually volatility doubled up to 35,000 disc, which you could have bought for less than 30k about 2 months ago. Interesting, not my expectation. So this was more my expectation. Here you make it up, but then you quickly have that pressure mount. But now look at that, very, very nice. Another sell opportunity basically if you manage to buy these close to the bottom. For Fullerites, we have the slow burn back towards 750, 765 for the sellers, below 750 for the buyers. Hypersynaptic fibers, that's more in line with my expectation, right? Boost up to 12k, but then that's an opportunity. We're back down to less than 10,000 for the sellers, so plug that gap. We'll see if a double top is possible here as well, though. And transistors is starting to wave its way back up to 5k. All right, which was the lower end of the range before all of this. Super narrow margin. Phenolic composites, volatility, Jesus, all right, another double top. You know, about 2 months ago, you could have bought this for probably 1,200 disc or something like that. 1.9 for the sellers, almost 1.9 for the buyers as well. Look at that volatility, very impressive. And then we've got ceramic fibers, also breaking out 1 year high point, going for 590 for the sellers, 440 for the buyers. Big moves, advanced move materials. Okay, I was not expecting this, but these double tops there coming out of the blue, and then some breakouts in other ones that haven't moved in a long time, or at least were like slowly pulling away from the bottom. Nothing too major to report here, but quite a few advanced move materials shooting up. This may have something to do with the Marauders as well, though. Let's take a quick look at that. It's capital stuff. Unless some of these, titanium, maybe something like that. Can I look at show info? Yeah, there you go. This is also tied to Tech 2 ships, and I'm seeing a lot of Caldari ships in there. So that's probably... Let's see, I'm not seeing the Marauder in here, but it's a G for Golem. Yep, there it is. There it is. It is in the Golem blueprint. So this is gonna be the Marauder impact here that is rippling through the entire, industry cycle for these ships themselves. Let's see if there's an impact on the Tech 2 ship market, coming in at 4210. Like that. As always, we'll start with the Basilisk, and that one is shooting back up. Well, it's back up well above 200 at 210. Currently we get sellers at 216 and 191 for the buyers. So again here, right, just about 2 months ago you were at a 1 year low point, well below 180 probably for the buyers, and now you're selling well above 200, and double top forming here again. The Cerberus counter move, moving its way back down, but 230, 221 for the sellers, 206 for the buyers. What's with this chart? All right, so this is actually going to go down even more. We're actually down here somewhere. Perhaps a buy opportunity if you're expecting that Golem push or that Marauder push to push this price back up here. Very interesting if you're able to buy this one for 206. That's just around here on the chart. That's definitely pretty low. And looking at that volatility, looking at what's happening with the Basilisk, looking at the Caldari volatility that definitely exists, I would say, yep, maybe grabbing a Cerberus on this downtrend. There should be enough supply to make that happen. Could be profitable. Then we've got the Guardian. Okay, we're continuing to slowly correct. We're back above 200 million. 208 for the sellers, 188 for the buyers. Now, this unfortunately is not really the sharp volatility that we're used to for the Tech 2 ship markets, but at least we are getting back to some more slightly normal prices, I'm going to say, for some of these MR ships. The Hound is also slightly up, well above 25 million at this point, 26 to 26.5 for the sellers, 22 million for the buyers. You're still buying that pretty cheaply, but it doesn't seem like the volatility is in the stealth bombers at the moment. Ichthyorsa from Triglavian space showing some more pressure here as well, 762 for the sellers and below 700 million for the buyers. Yeah, a little bit of pressure here, maybe some more supplies coming online. I honestly do think that for the longer term, I still have to do that. It's on my to-do list. More and more players are going to be able to be aligned with both Edencom and with the Triglavians, and so then you should start to see more and more supplies slowly come online of this stuff, and the Triglavian ships becoming cheaper and cheaper. The Ishtar then able to stay above 200, but definitely still not hot. 210 for the sellers, 193 for the buyers. If you're expecting like a push up here, you could try to grab an Ishtar well below 200 million. Manticore had a nice boost up to 40 million about a month ago. He's currently back up above 30 million, 33 for the sellers, 26 for the buyers. Unfortunately, this wave is not that great, but if of course you could have bought well below 25, you're already looking at another sell opportunity. Then we've got the Munin. The Munin is dropping back down quite quickly. All of a sudden, 192 for the sellers, 182 for the buyers, and then 180, below 180 for a lot of these. So you could get very close to the bottom of the chart already. Maybe with a little bit of patience, could even buy below the entire chart. Interesting, it is your choice, of course. Then we've got the Nemesis back up above 25 million. Again, those shallow waves here, not that great for trading, unfortunately. The Oneros, that's pretty reasonable, I'm going to say. 192 for the sellers, 176 for the buyers. That's still a pretty big margin. This one, sure, super nice for trading, but looking at these volumes, right, less than 25 a day on average, very, very tricky to do. You could try with a single Oneros, and then you could make ISK, but don't expect you to be able to do this trade like a dozen times or something like that. But right now, yeah, the Oneros finally showing the volatility that, which is the reason why we keep it on here. The Panther going back up, I think that could be fallout from the Marauder changes, just below 1.1 billion for the sellers and just below 1 billion for the buyers. Slight move up. Purifier slowly moving up, just like most Amar ships, back to 30 million though. That's impressive. 29.5 for the sellers, 25.5 for the buyers. So here we do have, like, you know, a mirroring of the increased prices for the advanced moon materials for Amar production, excuse me. It's just not really super volatile, right? You need a little bit more patience. We would love to see this year where in a matter of a week you could have bought for 25 and then sold for 35. That's not really what's happening in the Amar market at the moment. The Scimitar is going back down, but staying above 200. Yeah, 210 for the sellers, 192 for the first buyer. But then 183, get rid of this one and then try to buy one ship. Again, that's what I would do, would make sense. Then we've got the Widow, also making its way back towards 1.1 billion, I think. Yeah, above that for the sellers, above 1 billion for the buyers. And then finally the Zealot back down. So this one really not doing that hotly. 180 for the sellers, 174 for the buyers. Very cheap. So you had a sell opportunity at 250 not that long ago, but here we still have too many supplies. Again, the volumes, you know, 20 a day, 10 a day. It's not that great at the moment in the Amar ship market. Let's move on to the Tech 3 ship market then. 4810. So I would still say, if you want to gamble in Tech 2, I think Caldari is your best bet for volatility. Galente next. And maybe we'll see a big ripple for Minmatar as well because of where is it, this Fernite Carbide boost. But overall, you know, Amar still, it's that slow burn up. I would be very careful there. So on the Tech 3 ship market, we were normalizing between 45 and 50 million, I would say, and we were basically looking for signs of an imbalance that would become predictable and that we could take advantage of. Haven't spotted it so far, I must say. Confessor, 47 million for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers. And here 18, 10, 34. Last 24 hours, it's maybe a little bit much, but let's keep in mind it's still 47.5 million for these ships as well. Then we've got the Hecate, also right flat and normalizing in that same range. 46.5 for the sellers, 43.8 for the buyers. Full page again, so this is a lot of supply. I do think it is putting some pressure on the sell prices, but it's not completely crazy. 35, 35, 18, 15, 6. It doesn't feel that crazy. I think we're seeing some general pressure here so far. Then we've got the Jackdaw, actually up a little bit, but staying well below 50 million ISK. 48 for the sellers, 44 for the buyers, and a little bit less supply. That should pick up. We do have 70 of them here, but that is then countered by less volumes in the last 24 hours. Still feels decently balanced to to get that average price to converge somewhere between 45 and 50. And then we've got the Zwepel, that's basically landing at 45, to be expected for the least popular one. Still 48 for the sellers, 43 for the buyers, but here we have a drying up of the supply, because why would you make Zwepels at this price when you've got more popular ones like the Jackdaw still going for 48 million? So I'm not seeing big imbalances or anything too predictable here. We're still slowly converging on that price below 50, between 45 and 50. I think we're here to stay until an imbalance is somehow being created. That could be a big purchase from an alliance, or a slow and continued oversupply like here with the Hecate. I mean, this is quite substantial, a full page in the last 24 hours. This is a decent amount of ships for the cheapest one already on the sell price. If that continues a little bit, maybe we can build an imbalance that we can take advantage of, but for now none of this feels completely out of line. This could definitely get fixed basically by next week. Don't bring in as many Hecates, you get plenty of room in the Jackdaw, you get some room in the Confessor, to still take advantage of that. I think that's what's on the books for the normal working market, but you never know, of course, when something happens from outside. You could say like a big purchase or an announcement or something happening, or even a certain fleet going out, all of that could create a ripple we could take advantage of, but for now I'm not seeing it. Then we've got our cruisers. Here is the Legion going back up to the 180 million range. Pretty expensive again, 190 in fact, on a lack of supply. At least that feels normal, although it could be manipulated by just buying 100 Legions, pushing the price up. I think I said it last week. This is absolutely possible for not that big of a wallet. Then we've got the Loki, flat at the current range as well, 186. Not much to say there. Proteus staying above 150, big volume spike, and then no price response. So this really is, excuse me, that weird market. And then the Tengu getting to 200 million, yeah, to 2 for the sellers, 180 for the buyers. So that is all right. Can't really explain too many of these waves, but here that Legion. Right, if you're asking me what the hell happened here to push the price back up towards that 1-year high point, manipulation. I think someone just bought out everything, spent a couple billions on the Legions, and he's now probably just slowly going to put them back in, trying to get a slow sell going at a profit without crashing the market. But we'll see if they can succeed, because there's bound to be plenty of Legions that are going to plug that gap pretty quickly. And then finally, for the extra products, I'm actually choosing fuel blocks because, well, you may have noticed one of the biggest percentage moves that we've had definitely so far this year, but pretty much ever, has happened in the nitrogen fuel blocks that have moved over 30% all of a sudden. So I kind of want to take a look at all of these, and look at this, helium fuel blocks a month ago going for 18,000 ISK perhaps, currently selling for 27,000 ISK, buyers coming in at 21.5. That's a big boost up in fuel prices all of a sudden. Hydrogen fuel blocks, same story here, 17.5 2 months ago, currently selling for 25,000 ISK. Look at the lack of available supplies, the lack of sellers. Is it 100,000 units in Tranquility Trading Tower, but not really that much off for a much lower price. Then we get our nitrogen fuel blocks to the moon right now. Jesus Christ, going for 26,000 for the sellers, 21,000 for the buyers, very quickly to 27 and 28 as well. Some aggressive selling happening. And then we get oxygen fuel blocks that have already had that volatility happen in the last month, still going for 25,000, 20,000 for the buyers. I would love an explanation on this. Where is this volatility all of a sudden coming from in the fuel blocks? I hadn't noticed it because I'm out of the structured business at the moment. I'm living my nomadic life from my Orca and from my jump clone. So last week with the Guardian's Gala, I was actually back in the Mars space through one of my jump clones, but I don't have to regularly buy fuel and refuel my structure, so I don't see this that closely. But this is a lot of volatility and a very, very big move back up for the fuels here all of a sudden. If anyone has an explanation, it's not even that huge in the volumes, then definitely feel free to put that in the comments. I would love to know where this is coming from, but I can't see it as being demand for structure fuel all of a sudden, unless something happened there that I'm not aware of. Yeah, definitely a weird one, but something to note. I think if anyone follows here and has a lot of structures, yeah, compared to just 2 months ago, your fuel bill is going to be a lot more expensive. That's going to be it for this ETH talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.